So yeah, man, we back with that another edition of What's Really Good Entertainment, and I'm your host, yours truly, Tyrone Hunter. You see the title, I'm not gonna hold you. Let's get right into it. For those of y'all that are checking in for the first time, I appreciate you. Hit that like button and hit that share and subscribe button. If you already been rocking with the channel, I appreciate that too. And this one right here, you definitely want to stay around to the end of the video because I'm going to give you some real game. I'm going to give you some real game. I'm going to give you some real game. I'm going to give you some real understanding, right? So, what I'm be addressing today is, do going to prison and do doing time in jail make you real? If you want to know the answer to that question, stay tuned to the end of the video, but let's get right into it. Yeah, man, so this is a myth, and this is a myth that I grew up, and a whole lot of people that I know, we grew up with this myth in the back of our mind, like somehow going to jail, going to prison, and doing time was like a rite to passage. Because I remember, like, when I was around, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years old, when the older dudes in the hood, they used to bring all the little kids out, and, you know, we used to be in a building, or we used to be outside, and they used to put boxing gloves on us, and they used to make us fight. You feel what I'm saying? And they was, like, pretty much telling us that we got to represent when we go to jail. And that was the reason why. That was the reason why they had us fighting. And I'm talking about, like, sometimes the fights, like, you would be 4 foot tall and you'll be fighting a dude that's over 5 feet tall. That's just how it was. And that's how, you know, we was, in a sense, prepared to defend ourselves. That's how a lot of us learned how to fight. You know, just fighting each other. And if you got beat up, or you got punched in the eye, you got a black eye, you got a bloody nose, you got a bloody mouth, you got a bloody lip, they tell you, man, shake that off and get right back into it. So that's how a lot of dudes got tough. And, you know, that's how a lot of dudes, they got their hand skills together. I mean, you also had older dudes in the hood, you know, that was boxing or into boxing and stuff like that, and, you know, they would teach skill and technique. But for the most part, you know, dudes that I grew up with, especially the ones that learn how to fight real good, they learn how to fight just us fighting each other, you know, and fighting people that's bigger than us, and, you know, getting punched in the face and getting knocked down and getting a bloody mouth or whatever, and getting mad, you know, and going back in that ring and like, well, you know, I'm gonna give him a bloody mouth, I'm gonna give him a bloody eye, you know. So it became a competitive sport, and that's what led to, you know, some of us being violent. So yeah, man, older dudes, they used to be like, yeah, y'all better represent when y'all go to Rikers Island, you know. Then you had dudes coming home from, like, the youth facilities and stuff like that, telling us what it was about, and it was like we was interested in it. And our thing was like, man, when we go to jail, we gonna represent for our hood, we gonna represent for our neighborhood. So that's where I think the idea or the mindset came from, you know, that jail was some way and somehow a rite to passage. But at the end of the day, when you really look at it, what is it about going to jail that makes you any tougher or any realer than you was? Because a lot of dudes that was real individuals on the streets, when they went to prison, that's what they exhibited, and they got their respect and they got their name off of that. You know, you didn't. I mean, like, some people, they, you know, went to jail, and because it was gladiator school, you know, they may not have been the toughest in the street, and then, you know, they became a monster, and they became a problem, you know, while they were serving time. It's a lot of dudes like that. But that's all that is just really saying that, you know, you're going to defend yourself and you're going to fight for yourself and you're going to protect yourself and you're going to hold yourself down physically. But what does that have to do with being real? And why is it that, you know, that's something that people keep trying to feed into our culture, that you some way, somehow got to be a shooter on the streets, or you got to some way, somehow go to prison, because that's the only thing that's going to make you real. And that's the main reason why you got so many people crashing out and going to jail, because they got this false image or this false understanding of what being real is, you know. And if we really want to go into the definition of what's real, okay, so let's say you got a gangster in the street, a stone cold killer, drug dealer, got a name, got a reputation, everybody fear, love, and respect. But that person is out there selling drugs, or that person is robbing and stealing and killing or scamming, you know, doing all of these different things. But they got kids out there that they not even taking care of their kids. They out here getting all of this money, but they got family members that they not doing nothing for their family. So now they get locked up and they go to prison, and they do 10, 15, 20 years in jail. They come home, they kids is grown adults that got their own kids, don't want nothing to do with them because they wasn't there, because they put the streets first. How is these dudes considered real? Just because they did time in jail. How does that make you real when all of the money that you getting in the streets and your name, reputation, and everything is like you ain't doing nothing for your family? You know how many dudes I know, and even that movie Paid in Full will show the same thing. You know how many dudes that I know that was getting money in the streets, robbing, stealing, killing, doing whatever it was that they was doing. Wasn't taking care of their kids, mind you. But also, they wasn't doing nothing for their parents. If you want to go back to the 80s, that was even worse. Like, look at the Paid in Full movie. Look at the Paid in Full movie, for example. When them dudes was out there getting money, what it was showing in that movie, it was showing that Rich Porter was living in the hood, living in an apartment with all of that money, all of them cars, all of that jewelry. He was living in the hood in an apartment. He was sleeping on a bunk bed. And that was the reason why his uncle was feeling away, because, you know, he wasn't trying to give his uncle no money. So his uncle, you know, was part of lining him up. But that's not the only example. Even AZ from the same movie, from the, you know, the Paid in Full movie. AZ was living in the Bronx and was going to the apartment in the Bronx where they was staying at, and that's how them boys got the drop on him. And that's how he got shot up and all of that. You know, but here it is, these dudes, they riding around 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 cars, and they living in apartments. They wasn't moving they mothers and they fathers out the hood. I knew dudes in the streets that was getting money that they moms and fathers was on drugs. Like, especially me. Even me, when I was running around the streets, my mom's was a crackhead. My mom's was doing all the drugs. And that was for a lot of people that, you know, a lot of dudes that was in the street. So, back to the story though. Back to the question that I was asking. What makes a person real that get locked up for committing a crime, no matter what the crime is? Do 10, 15, 20 years, 25 years in prison, and then get released. What make them so real because they did all that time? How does that make them real? So People that never went to jail. People that never, ever, ever went to jail. That stayed out here raising their kids in their kids' lives, going to all of their kids' school function, working, making money to put their kids through college, you know, that got them degrees and careers and jobs, and they take care of their family, move their family out to nice areas, you know, their family do nice vacations and stuff like that. So those people is not real because they never went to jail. I don't get it, you know. I don't get it. Like, what's really good? Like, I want to know. Like, man, jump in the comment section and tell me what y'all think. Like, share with me y'all thoughts. Do you think I'm bugging, or do you feel like, okay, well, once a dude go to jail and they do a certain amount of time that they automatically certify? And put it in the comment section. But the reason why I'm bringing up this topic, right, and I'm bringing up this conversation, and this is no disrespect to anybody, this is no shot at nobody, I'm not talking about nobody, you know, in particular, I'm just speaking my thoughts, I'm just speaking my mind, right? But if we look at a lot of these dudes that done went to prison, a lot of these dudes that done went to prison and that done did a lot of time in prison, 10, 15, 20 years, 25 years, or whatever, right? The ones that we feel is the realest dudes because they did all of this time in prison. All right, so look at these dudes though. The only thing they could bring to the table, the only thing they could give you is stories about what they was doing in prison, how they was representing, what they was doing in the street, like pretty much war stories, how they was living life in the streets, all of the things that led them to going to prison. Most of them ain't got no money. Most of them ain't got no career. Most of them don't have no life savings. Most of them, they kids is grown and they got grandkids. So really, what did their life amount to for us to say that, man, that's a real individual because they did all of that time in jail? I mean, thankfully, you know, for YouTube and, you know, other social media platforms, you know, that some of these dudes that did a lot of time in jail, you know, they got a platform where they could actually make some money, you know, off of their stories and off of their lives and things of that nature. But do we ask ourselves what would be the scenario if it wasn't YouTube, if it wasn't social media, that some of these older dudes that did a lot of time in prison, what if social media wasn't a opportunity that was available for them to make no money? A lot of them dudes would be twisted. A lot of them dudes would be hurting in the game. And even with social media, even with YouTube pages, a lot of dudes that did a lot of time in jail, they not living good. You can see some of these dudes that's super well-known gangsters from way back in the 70s and the 80s. It's like, if you look at them, a lot of them don't got nothing going for themselves. A lot of them don't got nothing together. And again, it's no disrespect to them, because after you do all of that time, you should come out here and try to figure out what you're going to do so that you can stay out here, you know. But I'm giving you the flip side of the game. I'm giving you the flip side of the game. I'm giving you the flip side of the coin. Like, but don't idolize that, you know. Don't idolize a dude that went to jail and did a whole lot of time, and you know, convince you, or you have a mindset like, well, this individual is real because they did all of this time in jail, or this individual was gangbanging for all of these years, so, you know, they gotta be the realest ever. That's not real. I mean, if you do a crime, then you gotta go to jail, and you gotta pretty much, you gotta pay the piper. You know, you gotta do the time for the crime that you committed. And I love the fact that, you know, you have so many individuals that did time in prison. They on social media, you know, they giving their stories, and it gave them an opportunity to change their life. And some of them is, you know, imparting information, you know, to the youth to try to prevent them from going back to prison. And that's cool, that's respected. Even if they not imparting information on the youth to get them some information so that they don't go to jail. They don't have to. They don't have to. I mean, you know, whatever it is that you do, or whatever it is that you need to do to make sure that you can put food on the table and you can take care of yourself. I mean, ultimately, you got to do what it is that you got to do. But I'm speaking from the standpoint of, like, let's stop glorifying just because a dude caught 5 bodies, or just because a dude, you know, shoot and kill people, or, you know, sell drugs, or a big scammer, or did time in prison, that makes them real, because that's not the only thing that make you real. Michael Jordan is real. He never went to prison. LeBron James is real. He never went to prison. Do you understand? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Going to prison don't make you real. Going to prison just says you got caught for a crime and you got to do the time. That's all that means. And when you go to prison, it's you going to stand up or you going to fold. You going to win some and you going to lose some. You make it through it. However you spent your time, however you did your time, you go through it, you get through it, and you come out here and, you know, pretty much you go about your business. But I want us to stop glorifying, you know, things that are not realistic, things that are not reality. It's nothing about going to prison that makes you real. And if you listen to some of the hip-hop music from back in the days, or some of the wise individuals from back in the days, they used to always say, like, I wouldn't wish prison on my worst enemy. Because that's how messed up prison is. So you could believe in and you could idolize, you know, anything it is that you want. But that's one thing that I don't want you to get confused. I don't want you to think or feel, you know, especially to the kids and the youth out there. I don't want y'all to think or feel that because you ain't go to prison, you know, or because you're not a killer, or because you're not getting all of this money, that means that you're not real. That's not reality. And this is important that I mention this, because a lot of these kids out here is thinking and feeling that just because they're not doing those kind of things, you know, that they can't do nothing else, or they can't be nothing else in life. And that's what's causing a lot of these kids to throw their life away and get caught up in all of these situations, you know, because they feeling like, well, this is the only thing that's gonna make me real. No, you gotta separate yourself from those. Like, yeah, you got people that's in the streets, and you got people that stay in the books. You got, you know, people that ain't never been to jail, that ain't never been to prison. I wish I was one of those people, you know? I wish I was one of those people. But going to school and getting an education, that's real. You know, being smart and getting a good job, that's real. You know, taking care of your kids and handling your responsibilities, that's real. Not being a crash dummy, that's real. You know? Shout out to everybody that, you know, them came up in the streets and was doing whatever they was doing in the streets and went to prison and did some time, and now they trying to do something different with their life. Or people that never went to prison, but they just got tired of the streets and they decided to change their life. Shout out to all of y'all, you know? However, and at the end of the day, let's if we're going to do something to try to deter some of these youth and some of these kids out here, to make better, smarter, and wiser choices in life, then we have to deal with the reality. We have to stop putting out there information, because putting out there certain information because You got a lot of these kids, you know, that look up to rappers. You got a lot of these kids that look up to, you know, dudes from the hood that they heard was somebody at one point or another. And you're very impressionable to these teens and to these young adults. So a lot of what you say, pretty much they're gonna hold on to that. So you gotta be careful with the message that you get them. Tell them the real definition of what being real is, not the street definition. Because the streets, and I'm pretty sure almost everybody will tell you that went through the streets, that went through prison, and that changed their life and got another opportunity to do it different. I guarantee you they'll tell you that the streets did more to destroy their life than help their life. I promise you, that is a whole fact. Because a lot of things that we was taught growing up in the streets, that's what led us to crime and to running the streets and doing a lot of things that we was doing. All to find out that all that shit boiled down to is getting all of this time in prison. Like, that's all it boiled down to, getting a lot of time in prison. Losing loved ones, you know? Like losing family, losing relatives, losing time that we can never get back. That's what you know, following the streets and the code of the street and the rules of the streets, that's what got us. So, man, you know, this was just one of those, just to kind of clear some things up. That it don't make you real just because you out there terrorizing the streets or you do a lot of time in prison. Ain't nothing real about that. That's just choices that you make in life. You know, that doesn't say the kind of individual that you are. It don't make you no real, it don't make you no fake. If you get locked up for a crime, you're just a criminal court, because that's what it say on that building. It says criminal court. So that means you committed a crime and you got caught. So don't think that you smart because you in jail doing 20, 30, 40, and 50 years. Ain't nothing smart about that. And ain't nothing real about that. You know? But yeah, man, Tyrone Hunter was really good entertainment. Giving the right information and inspiring the next generation to do great things. That's what's really good. I'm going to catch you in the next one, though.